I would just start with a little bit of introduction, self-introduction, and how the whole development of Animal PsychAromatica came into being. I trained in animal aromatherapy in 1998 with Caroline Ingraham. I trained in animal aromatherapy because I was working with behavioural problems in horses, working with people and animals and behaviour, and helping animals and humans get along better is how I actually have always viewed it, is how I got into the aromatherapy. So that's my sort of entry point of view, is animal well-being, but mostly emotional, psychological well-being rather than the physical. Now, the wonderful thing when I got into animal aromatherapy is two things. One thing, you find out that essential oils take care of both. That if you take care of the emotional state with the animal, you also relieve a lot of physical symptoms. So it's kind of a byproduct, a side effect. It's a side effect of aromatherapy that they get better. So that was my point of view, was working primarily on the emotional and psychological state to create well-being. As I developed, as I started to work and started to bring my new skills into my work with animals and using the essential oils, I was having really good progress. But I found that a certain amount of cases just got stuck, or they didn't change, or they didn't, and I started going, so questions. This whole process of developing Animal PsychAromatica has totally been process-led, taught to me, as I see it, by the animals and by interacting with the animals. They've led my way every step of the way. So because I was having this, I started noticing certain patterns, particularly one big light bulb was a certain brand of dog food I was seeing coming up as the food for a lot of the anxious dogs that came to me. So that, and I realized that when you changed that, took it away, their anxiety reduced. So that made me just go, okay, I need to look much wider than just bringing an essential oil and some behavioral knowledge to this case. I need to look at everything. So I've been looking at behavior, and I've been looking at the human's role in that. That's where I'm starting from. And then I was led to look at nutrition. And I met the wonderful Nick Thompson just in the early 2000s when raw food started to be a thing and species appropriate diet started to become a thing. And that was an influence. But also what I learned is that it's a stressor. And what I realized is that if you cannot remove the environmental stresses that animals find in their lives, you're only going to ever have partial recovery. You're going to be supporting them to live in a stressful environment, which is sometimes necessary. Sometimes it's not possible to make all of the changes you would like to. But if you can create an environment that is free of stressors, and when I say stressors, I don't mean things like, like we tend to think of stress as something critical, something that happens, or we see it as something that upsets us. I don't mean that exactly. It can also be that, but a stressor is something that makes a body feel uncomfortable, and that can be food, that can be how they're being trained, that can be the environment, the house they live in, it can be the smells in the household, it can be the household not getting along. There's a lot of things that are going to stress an animal in the domestic environment. In fact, every domestic animal, I posit, is under stress, some sort of chronic stress, because they're not in an environment that their bodies and minds were evolved to live in. That's okay. We all live in a bit of stress. That's domesticity. We choose to have a little bit of stress going to work rather than the stress of going out and hunting wildebeest or something, never knowing where our food's going to come from. Stress is a part of life. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but we need to be able to recognize what causes stresses and reduce them. So all of this information was coming to me. I was also learning some acupressure and 5-element theory and Chinese medicine, and found that to be an incredibly let's say, very, for me, very intuitive, very natural way to understand wellness and to understand disease, because it is so in tune with nature. It's a really great way to look at the whole picture through the prism of Chinese medicine. So that was included into the system. So Animal PsychAromatica, and during this time I was working with animals. I was also teaching on the course run by the Guild of Essential Oils for Therapists for Animals, Guild of Essential Oil Therapy for Animals, JOTA, at that time in the early 2000s. But in 2006, I said, enough, I got to do my own course. I had actually harassed into it by a friend of mine called Marilyn Peters, who teaches on the course as well. And put all of those things together, put this system together, put in the aromatic botanicals, the behavioural and understanding the ethology, understanding an animal's species-specific evolutionary needs and finding ways to fulfill those in a domestic environment, traditional Chinese medicine, and self-awareness also, for the human, helping the human understand their animal and what's being said and how increasing the levels of communication. And I called it Animal PsychAromatica because it's about animals, obviously. And psyche is a great word because it means mind, right? Like in psychology and all of that. But psyche also means spirit in its original. It is a spirit. It's the spirit. It's our spirit. And that's very much what we are working with when we're working through this approach. We are talking to the spirit of the animal, and we are finding ways to support body, mind, spirit to become healthy. And that is the whole point of Animal PsychAromatica. It's not about fighting disease. It's about supporting wellness. And I think that's one of the big differences about this system, that's our focus. And it very much includes working with the human that's involved there. It's involving the human in the offering of the oils, the self-selection. How did I manage to get this far without talking about self-selection? Because that is really the basics and the foundation of the whole system. And this was, for me, it's such a heart-opening and mind-opening way of dealing with animals. Because when self-selection based on an animal's ability to select their own medicine, self-medicate, zoopharmacognosy, all of the different words it's called, so that we use that for how we work with the aromatics. It's always based on self-selection. But, and this is the big thing, is that it goes beyond just the aromatics. It goes into everything we then do with the animals. They know what they need. And if we can just listen to that and tune into that, understand what their needs are, then they will help us. They're there saying, I would like to have this. Actually, I'd rather not have this food. I'd rather walk in this direction. I feel stressed when I go in that way. And it's very much a part of how we work, is listening to the animals primarily, above all. If they want it, we do it. If they don't, we don't. And that goes also with the acupressure, the essences. They communicate with us about the essences. They can select essences. Honestly, people, animals can select homeopathy and essences. They know how to do that. We've seen it. We work with it all the time. So this level of interacting with the animals is what actually keeps me ignited. And I've been doing this for a lot of years now, 20 plus. My math isn't very good, but years. And every time I see it happening, and every time I see it in action, it lights up my heart. I love it. I just love being able to do this, and I love being able to share that with people. So that was not such a very small nutshell, but I've kind of given you the ground of it. So another part of my learning was that I picked up a lot of different little skills along the way. So I had the aromatics, I had the Chinese medicine, there's a bit of energy work and communication, all of these skills on different kind of levels of how we interact, from the very physical, the chemical, the nutrition, to the very energetic, which is the communication and the essences and stuff. And I find that it's really important for people who are working with animals to have that range of skills, because it just gives us, and some of us are going to be more aligned with one sort of energetic level and some with others. But if we have just a little bit of each, we are whole in our approach a little bit. Now, I want to introduce you to Neomi. And what Neomi is very dear to me. I've known her since she was 17 years old or 18 years old or something. And I've watched her develop into this amazing practitioner. She's an acupuncturist, and she's just followed her passion all of those years. She's an inspiration, and she really knows her stuff. So why don't we get to know Neomi a little bit, and she can tell us what is so special about the way she teaches the aromatics, the acupressure on the Chinese medicine, the deeper levels of Chinese medicine in our system, in the APA system. Over to you.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. So I think Nayana about covered everything, but I'll just go a bit deeper into it. So I think during my career, now it's about a bit more than 18 years of Chinese medicine clinic, that I have evolved into what we are teaching today on the course. And first of all, we're teaching the 5-element theory, philosophy of the Chinese medicine. I'm going to be teaching how the 5 elements, how it actually works with animals, a different way to see animals, and how we can use it for the process of healing. I think one of the main things is learning how to listen more to animals through their own element, okay? Learning how they prefer to communicate, what is their best choice of rebalancing themselves, healing themselves, especially when we're using the meridians and the points. I know that as the years go by, I use less and less acupuncture as a treatment method, and I use more acupressure, herbal medicine, Chinese herbal medicine, because it allows animals to communicate and tell you what they prefer, how they prefer, instead of just us being smarter than them and choosing for them the way to heal, which usually doesn't really work that well. So the more we listen to them, the better we can help them in their healing process. And on the course, what I'm teaching is actually the points that work with the 5-element theory, how we can choose a good, let's say, point mix to help and let them choose if they want to have these points, how we can use them with the oils, how we can use them energetically or by touch. And we're going to learn how the internal organs work, how does the body, let's say, bring a specific sickness outside instead of something else. Okay, why does the body communicate this way with us instead of another one? And as we learn the philosophy, we understand better the way these animals, their body communicates with us. So I think that's just getting a bit deeper into it
That's great. Yeah, it's a slightly different way of working with the Chinese medicine than what is generally seen on the acupressure courses that are being taught, because we're really looking deeply into how the organs function, how the meridians function, and understanding how little is actually needed as a rule in order to rebalance an animal, especially when you have the support of the essential oils, the aromatics, to help activate and realign the points and the meridians. It's really a very powerful combination. So good.